Today, I have a marvelous story, and it shows sort of someone transforming their lives in a direction that really pleases them in terms of the kind of freedom they'd like to have as an entrepreneur. And our guest and the person who gave us the interview is named Erick Holliday. And Erick is a unique story. All stories in Strategic Coach are unique, but it just shows someone paying attention to failure as an indicator of where success lies. Okay. So Erick will tell you, as you watch his interview, how he really had a rough time. One business went out from under him because of 9/11, and another business, he had a really bad year during the 08, 09, downturn, and there were, family tragedies. And instead of being beaten down by this, and I think this really important thing is that the universe is kind of telling you maybe you're not doing the right thing. Maybe the occupation you've chosen isn't. So he's made a flip completely from another industry into the medical industry, but with a very specialized focus. And this is what I love about longtime strategic coach clients. They're in the same industry with perhaps thousands of other entrepreneurs, but they're doing something that's just totally unique to them. And it has to do with their ideas. They have an idea of a new way to create value for your clients. And then you have a very, very special set of clients that this is appropriate for. Okay. And then you just keep expanding. You do unique ability on yourself. You do unique ability teamwork on your organization, so that your company, you have a surround, they can constantly grow the the business, both from the standpoint of what kind of clients you can have, also what the reward is in terms of revenues and profits. But the thing that I like so great about what Erick is focused on is that he's focusing in on what I think is going to be the biggest breakthrough of the 21st century, and that is our understanding of how our brain actually works. Okay, and he gets introduced to people to help them by the fact that they suffer from burnout. Okay, and the burnout simply comes from as strategic coach clients know, is not giving your brain a break from the work, and thinking that if you work harder and you work longer, that's going to be the key to your success. And it's only true for the early part of your career. I mean, I never talk to people much about what they do during their first 2 or 3 years as an entrepreneur. And the reason is that I haven't seen any other solution to getting solid ground under your feet as an entrepreneur, except working really, really hard first 2 or 3 years. Okay, because you don't even know the business, you don't know the marketplace, you don't know what the yearly cycle looks like, you don't know your cash flow cycles, you don't know any of that. And so we have a requirement that people have 3 years in the marketplace. Somewhere, not necessarily what they're doing, but they have 3 years because there's just certain things that are just going to require hard work. They're going to require hours that are longer than normal. The thing is, though, that after about 3 years, you want to stop doing that. Okay, and this is where concepts like the self-managing company, unique ability, both for yourself and your team, unique ability, teamwork. But our biggest breakthrough in the last 2 years of the program is who, not how. So that once you understand what you love doing and what you're really good at and who the best client and customer is for you, then you stop doing most of the hows. And you're the who is the best who, to develop the best clients, the best customers, to create the best new solutions. And then you surround yourself by other hows. And This blue ribbon time for Eric because I think he's done a fantastic job just listening to his story. And the thing is that he's really pioneering a new way of dealing with the issue of burnout. I mean, if you listen to this and you listen to what he's discovered that about how much exponentially our the subconscious brain learns in comparison with the conscious brain, you'll start taking free days. You'll start surrounding yourself with who's who do the hows, and you'll keep going for bigger checks. And you'll keep packaging your discoveries and your innovations in such a way that you become an expert on this, widely recognized by other people. So it was just a pleasure, just enormous pleasure to listen to this story. Anyway, I just want to shout out to Eric, and I hope that Eric's story really is transformatively useful to you as you listen.
Hi, my name's Erick Holliday. I'm the CEO of Holiday Health Group, and I also invest in several companies. I've been in coach, I think I'm going on year 7 now, and it's incredible how time flies. I can think back to, when I first got the information and it just kind of sat on my desk, and then now to where I can't wait to get something in the mail. I always felt like I was an entrepreneur even when I was young. When I was interviewing for companies, I told them that, I was never given an allowance by my parents. And so I always had to work for what I wanted. I had to hunt, if I wanted something. So if I wanted my surfboard, I had to find a way to buy it. And so I started going to the neighborhood, mowing lawns, doing some yard work. And then from there, I had a paper out. And that taught me a lot of discipline. But what I really liked is I liked that I was in charge of my future. And so even with my paper route, I had to, do all the heavy lifting, and then I went to go collect the money, and if you didn't provide the best service, sometimes people wouldn't answer their door. So that was definite early training in entrepreneurship. But then, I got a little sidetracked, and I got a lot of messages that I need to, think about what I wanted to do when I grow up, and what kind of job and corporate ladder I wanted to climb. And so I did that. It's funny. I had an advertising agency back in the 90s, and then of course 9/11 happened. And so then I got into the medical industry as an employee. So that the one thing about entrepreneurship is it is scary, and it's okay to admit that. And so I was so scared about what happened in 9/11, I thought I'd be safe, and what safer place? A lot of my doctor friends said, hey, you got to get into healthcare. And so I did. And even though I was an employee, I was in sales and business development. So that was still what I consider entrepreneurship, because if you don't perform, just like as an entrepreneur, if you don't provide results, then you're not going to be employed very long. And so I did that for many years. And but I always had that itch, it's in my DNA that I always have these crazy ideas. I'm a vision person, and that doesn't really work that well when you're in a company or a corporate setting. And so, I'm kind of pacing from the 2000s, but I had that itch. And as an entrepreneur, that's just the DNA, it's something that you can't avoid. And so I finally, I'm going to talk about the pivotal moment. So what really changed my life was, as an employee, I made a lot of money, but I wasn't in charge of my future, and that's something that really scared me. And the tax situation really scared me. So I couldn't, if I had expenses, there was all these rules with employee expenses, and I just every time at the end of the year, when I thought I had a really good year and made a lot of money, I could have made a lot more if I was an entrepreneur or business owner. So, I was really, really thinking about that. And then 2008, 2009 happened. So we had the Great Recession. And although I was doing really well in my company, there's a lot of other people that weren't. I saw people being laid off. I saw people that had families that had health situations, and That really affected me. And then it happened to me. In 2009, my sister committed suicide. And so when that happened, it was a real eye opener that I had it wasn't just about making money. It was about what impact I wanted to have in my family, in my community, and in the world. And so that was a real eye opener. When that happened, I immediately changed everything. I said, okay, I got to change it. I started, I was doing some consulting, and the other pivotal moment is, that's when the Affordable Care Act came out. So being in healthcare, that was a big deal for my industry. And I knew things were changing, and that's the only thing that is constant is change. And so, um, I was enticed to become an employee again, which I did. And so I kind of went through this roller coaster ride, but I still had a strategy. I knew that if I was going to be an employee, I wanted to make sure that it was with the top companies in healthcare. And so I got this really incredible background, just total enterprise, training and experience on all aspects of healthcare, inpatient, which is in the hospitals, outpatient, home healthcare, everything. And then it finally happened. As I was number one, and I was doing great in the companies, but I had that itch that I just couldn't. I knew I had to make the big leap, and that's where I just finally jumped. And that was, I think, in 2014. I got the momentous mailing from Strategic Coach, and I finally looked at it and I said, I'm just going to book it. I'm going to go ahead and book it and see what this is all about. And because what I'm doing right now is not working. It's not all about the money. There's got to be other parts of life. And so then I went, and I was fortunate, when I was in Beverly Hills at the Four Seasons, and in my table, we had Joe Polish, who I was, listening to and these wonderful podcasts with Dan, and Babs was at my table, and I'm just like, oh my God, I just like literally died and went to entrepreneur heaven. And immediately, I just gave them, handed them over all the information they needed, and they gave me a whole bag of goodies, all these books and stuff, and I'll never look back to that moment. So I think my first coach session was 2015, and it was just I finally was in charge of my future, and if it worked, great, and if it didn't, I can pivot. But it was the first time I really felt that I had freedom, and I really that was really important to me. That's actually the most important thing for me in all aspects of my life is having freedom. Freedom, to work with the people I want to work with, to identify the purposes of my life, to do all these things that are really important. And then, it's never really about the money. The money comes when you do that. And so, that was a momentous change that all kind of really was triggered by, I'm not going to look back. It started with that Great Recession, my sister, and how that affected me personally, my family, and just the way I lived my life. All the relationships I used to have and the way that I used to approach things completely changed from that moment. And then the next major thing was really diving into entrepreneurship and just really jumping off that cliff. And I'll never look back uh, and uh, and I'll never look at that moment as a moment that was not really a defining moment in my life. It was something that I just couldn't escape. It was there, and I had to go for it. Before coach, my freedom was I was working 70 plus, maybe 80 plus hours a week, and I was working weekends. I had no free time. I had no time to recharge. I didn't understand, being in the corporate world, if I was given 3 weeks, it was like a luxury. And in one company I worked at, I had 3 weeks and a sabbatical, and I thought I was in heaven. And then when I joined Coach and I heard about 150 days off a year or 100 days off, and I looked at it and I said, wow, that's amazing. And really, all that really is, if you just have your weekends completely free, that really turns into like what 100 days is. So um, I didn't have freedom. I was always reacting. And one of my superpowers is just being curious, and so when I had, personal tragedy in my family, and then, as I was trying to climb the corporate ladder and do what I thought, society said was the thing to do, I was always still curious, and I was always wondering, like, why is it that I'm working harder than someone else, yet I'm not as happy as other people, I'm not as fulfilled, I'm not like there's something missing. And that's when, luckily being in healthcare, I have a lot of resources. We have a lot of relationships with decision makers and C-suite, and a lot of researchers and scientists and doctors and nurses. And I found out something incredibly interesting, and that is that the people that usually suffer are the ones that are working from the conscious level of mind. And that is basically, and this has all been proven, our conscious mind can only process 40 to 60 bits of information per second. So if you think about that, if you compare our conscious mind, I can't have this conversation with you right now, and I can't ride a bike, and I can't bake a cake. I can only do one or two things, and that's it. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. Yet, nobody taught us in school that there's another way, a much more efficient, effective way to work with our mind rather than just the conscious mind. And so I was really ruminating on that. I started diving with our team into research, and it was really fascinating. We were going to launch a project with clinicians who are doctors and nurses in healthcare around burnout, because they were really stressed out, and that impacted the patient care, and then it impacted everything. And so you can just imagine, if you're a lot of doctors don't even look at their patients, they're looking at a computer screen because of all the changes we had from the Affordable Care Act. And so that created a lot of stress for patients and families, because if their doctor can't even give them the proper bedside manner and look them in the eyes and tell them, what's going on, then it just created a lot of issues. And also for um, just for them personally, being stressed out and burnt out, there's no way to live your life. And so we were going to launch that. And then, of course, we had 2020 happen. And so that was a major pivot. So because we didn't have access to healthcare workers, we pivoted to entrepreneurs and investors. And through the research we had, we showed them that, your subconscious mind can process 400 billion bits of information per second. We really don't know exactly how much, because we don't have the right equipment to measure the subconscious mind. In fact, scientists said that our memories are not stored in our brain or our body. So where are memories stored? And then we dove into some other science research about the superconscious. And so, as I mentioned, we have access to research with autistic children, with older populations and Alzheimer's. And we took a look at what tools they were using, and we basically combined that with our own methodology. One major insight we had in our research that we didn't see out there is that, our entire world is based on law, and it needs to be that way, because otherwise there would be chaos. And before there's a law, there's a contract. And so we said, well, if there's laws in the world and there's contracts, then you have to have a contract, because then there won't be order, there won't be business basically, or anything. Then would the mind act similarly? And we said, well, let's go into our research. And we had an early adopter group we worked with last year, and it was fascinating. People that had issues that were, whether it was issues with financial issues, it was mental health related issues. And when I say mental health, I mean, it starts with stress, and then from there on, if somebody needs something a little more acute, then we always recommend that they go see a professional. But, there's a lot of talk about mental health nowadays, and a lot of that being, thinking about your mind and how that affects you. And so in that group, we found that when we taught these participants how to access their subconscious mind, the results were impressive. They were, one person, we were working on some M&A events in healthcare, because that was a huge shift, going from face-to-face interactions to now all remote telehealth, basically telehealth, telemed. And the ability for these people in the group to transform their lives was fascinating. And so that was, I kind of went around in a tangent, but it was really important, because that now is one of the fundamental ways that I work personally, and I work with others in our team and then our clients, is how to access their subconscious mind for immediate and sustained results. Before, I was acquiring information, just acquiring. But now the way that I know that our minds work, our minds are a computer. So if you were to buy, let's say you go to the Apple store and you buy a computer, a MacBook Pro, let's say, and you ask the MacBook Pro, what should I have for dinner today? How do I solve this business problem? It's not going to talk back to you because the computer needs to be programmed. Just like, you have programmers that program their computers. And so once we identified that the mind works as a computer, yet we're constantly frustrating ourselves because we're asking the computer for answers that it doesn't have answers to. And so one of the big things, about coach is you have to give your mind instructions. You have to direct it specifically in order to get a specific output. And that was a huge game changer for me because that led me down this path of, well, the reason that people in our programming community are experiencing a lot of happiness, joy, financial returns, all that is because they're consciously directing their mind. So they're using the conscious mind properly. And then the subconscious is then responding in the appropriate way. And so, yeah, I definitely live my life differently. Another big, aha moment was, we have to make goals because we have to direct the mind. But every time we make a goal, the other side of that coin is resistance. And a lot of people run away from resistance. They avoid it, which causes more resistance. But resistance isn't to be avoided, it's to be resolved. And so that's another thing that, we found was we welcome resistance because when you welcome it and you confront it with courage, as we say in our group, then you're able to process it. You're able to, basically release on what that resistance is there because our mind also has safety mechanisms. So if you want to have a big goal in your life, the mind thinks it's unsafe. And so the resistance is the proper use of the computer, which is to hold you back, make you evaluate before you take that leap so that you don't die. Because back in prehistoric days, if you were too risky, without kind of that pullback, that resistance, and you can get eaten by, a dinosaur or an animal or something. So yeah, I definitely approach everything differently now, knowing how the mind works. The first thing is, you understanding the brain, and so the way that I explain it is, the subconscious is like our operating system and our brain is like our hardware. And so you really have to take care of your physical body, including all your organs, your health, your brain. So you have to have brain health. Dr. Daniel Amen does a great job with that, by the way. And once you take care of your hardware, then you got to take care of your software. The way to really think about connecting your subconscious is whole brain balancing. So that is connecting both hemispheres of your brain, the left brain and the right brain. And we teach people how to do that. So, and it's not difficult, really. It's just we use psychophysiology. So we use certain physical movements, poses, exercises to access the subconscious. And when in that state of the subconscious, then you're able to give it instructions and it responds. And so once you give your computer the right instructions, it's going to obey, you 100%. The fascinating thing about the subconscious is if I were to tell your subconscious instructions, it would ignore me. But if I were to facilitate, some instructions with you and you ask your subconscious, it will obey 100% of the time. Yeah, so let's say if you have, number one, if you have something that's stressing you out, so it could be work related, it could be, you might just be burnt out, then the first thing to do is really confront that. And so once you access your subconscious with like some of these physical poses, you ask it to bring you to a state of peace. And you just sit with it. And then you just basically take your hands off the wheel. Once you take your hands off the wheel, you allow the subconscious to do its work. Remember, the subconscious is extremely powerful. There's no quantum computer in the world today more powerful than our own subconscious mind. It really is like riding a bike. Once you, if someone gives you a bike and says, ride this, without really showing you, then you fall down, you get hurt, and you just give it up. Some people might give it up. It's too painful. And other people might keep falling down over and over and over until somebody teaches you how to do it. Then you learn by doing. So it's experiential learning. And then then the subconscious takes a hold of it and it becomes automatic. So there's all these things that we can do with our minds. So anytime you notice a trend or a pattern, that usually indicates that there's a powerful contract at play. Some people call that self-sabotage. Other people consciously want to improve their life or business, but they don't understand that the subconscious is so much more powerful. If we're using 3 to 5% of our brain, and there's that other 95% that controls our breathing, our heart rate, we don't need to like think about blinking every second. All these things the subconscious takes care of, and so it's almost impossible to transform from the conscious level of mind. You really need to partner with the subconscious to make those changes. Once you are aligned with your conscious mind, directing your subconscious, and then requesting, from your superconscious, all these wisdom, insights, transformations, life just becomes, just amazing. It becomes every single day can be full of just wisdom, insights. Things can happen seemingly out of nowhere. So whether that's financially, for some people, spiritually for others, health-wise. That's another thing is that, a lot of our health incidents are created from our contracts, these very powerful contracts that we created at a young age. And so once we're aligned, the pain or some of these episodes that we experience no longer have to teach us what we need to learn. We can already tell our mind that, okay, we've gotten the wisdom, we've gotten the teaching from this, and now we don't need to experience that pain. So Dr. Sarno was fascinating. He was a physician out of New York, and he helped people kind of connect with their subconscious in a different way. But the results that he experienced when people confronted, were working with their subconscious was fascinating. Back pain literally eliminated. And so there's just a lot of people I want to thank, a lot of mentors and a lot of real pioneers in psychology and, psychiatry and physiology. I mean, there's just all the lists. And then in law, the legal aspect, fortunately, my father's an attorney. And so I had a lot of access to attorneys, and really understanding what laws and the meaning of words are critical. And so everything kind of combined together. Going back to the 4 freedoms, I'm able to experience that every single day. Whereas before it was just a dream. I was like, oh, that sounds like it's that person must be lucky. Now it's like, no, I'm in control of my life and I can actually make that happen for myself. And it's available to me, whereas in the past I had a contract that, oh, that's not available to me. The way that Dan Sullivan lives his life, that's not available to me, or Joe. And that's all it is a contract that you can terminate. So if you see patterns in your life or your business, then that usually means that there are some very powerful mind contracts at play that are repeating themselves. Now, a contract, just like we have in the real world, either has to be fulfilled or there's consequences. So if you have a contract with another company and they don't fulfill their end of that contract, then you can take them to court and get relief or other things. However, a contract can be terminated if it doesn't work out, or it can be amended. Now, if you have a goal, the only thing keeping you from your goal is you're not allowing it. When I say you, I'm not talking about consciously. Consciously, you want it. You're like, yeah, I want to make millions of dollars or whatever, or I want to have a health, breakthrough. It's not conscious, it's subconscious. And so the first thing, that's important is to basically learn to allow yourself to have that. And so you just connect with, usually you'll feel an energy in your chest or your stomach area, like a resistance. And just imagine that, there's either like an open window over your chest or stomach area, and just sit back and give permission to that energy to leave you. A fascinating thing is we're not our feelings. Our feelings are our energy. And so when people say, I am sad, that's not true. The truthful statement is, I'm experiencing sadness. I'm experiencing even happiness. But we're supposed to be in a state of flow. And the state of flow is being in a state of release at all times. So being, mindful is really releasing. So confronting the resistance, usually it's in this area, and just sitting with it and just allowing it to leave you, and just constantly practicing that every day. And someone asked me, well, I've already done that. I did it once yesterday. And I said, well, I mean, are you just going to shower once and that's it? No, it's something you do. It's something you do frequently. And so the other example I give is, imagine not taking out your trash for a week. It's going to start smelling at some point. But when you take it out, that's what you're doing. You're releasing, constantly rejuvenating, exfoliating. And so whatever goal you have, I allow myself to have peace with my family. And if there's some type of resistance, you just sit with it, you observe it, and you just allow it to just leave you. And if you were to do that every day, you would notice everything improve, because again, those contracts and those programs in our mind are causing the resistance. Because when we were young, like age 2 or 3, and our subconscious was always on, we were operating completely from a subconscious and on a brainwave state. That's like a theta brainwave. As we got older to like age 6, 7, 8, now we're going from alpha state, then eventually to beta brainwave state. And so the subconscious is never asleep. It is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It absorbs everything. It notices things that consciously I'm too slow to notice. When you think of frequencies, think of, like animals. Like dogs can hear at a higher frequency than we can as humans. You know, sight. If you think about how limited we are from our eyesight and all the spectrums of colors, and there's all these things going on, then we'll understand that we're not supposed to operate from our conscious level mind. We're supposed to partner with our subconscious. But that's the best exercise to do daily, is to really connect with your goal. Or if you're feeling stressed, and just allow it to leave you, just sit with it and confront it. The best thing to do is to face it and just allow it to dissipate. And then there's some other tools that we teach people as well, where you can really drill down into it. And yeah, it's important to be, all the answers are in the beingness. So the super conscious, whatever faith you have, and your subconscious, and using the tools and coach, quite frankly. I mean, just connecting to that and directing your mind to, what it is that your intention is, and then allowing all that resistance to leave you, understanding that you're not your feelings. And it's not bad to feel bad. It's just energy. All our feelings are just energy. Yeah, I would say that the program hasn't cost me a penny. I haven't paid anything for the program because of all the ROI I've gotten. I mentioned the 4 freedoms, definite freedom. I mean, uh, if I told you how many hours I work per day, you guys probably wouldn't believe me. But before, when I was working 78 hours, I don't work any weekends. My phone is off. I don't. I literally am a totally changed person from the way I used to be. My free days, I just got back from, some free days. I was over in Las Vegas, and we were supporting, we had free days, and then we were supporting a charity. It's very important to us, called After Orange, where we're helping female prisoners, reintegrate into society, and reduce recidivism. But yeah, that's my freedom of purpose. I can now participate in these programs I really care about. And another project is prisoner entrepreneurship. Imagine, look at the prison population. We can transform it, and they no longer have to have a stigma of being an employee as an ex-con. They can find what their unique ability is, and then become an entrepreneur, and then just partner with everybody. So yeah, my life is completely transformed. I never thought I would be who I am today. I just thought it was always a dream, but I'm actually living it every single day. As an investor, partnering with my subconscious and my superconscious, just, the deals that I'm invited to participate in, it just kind of comes to me, and because of my tight network, everything's just easier, um, and you mentioned complexity. I always look to simplify, and I always look to, Dan talks about who, not how. And so I look to really connect to a lot of experts for anything, whether it's health related, or whether it's, related to anything with my businesses. And everything just is more fun. I mean, that's the other thing, is before, when you're living your purpose, or in your unique ability, you could do something 24 hours a day and you gain energy. You don't get tired. And I finally was able to experience that in the program, and so it's just like a consistent up leveling. Goals are fun, so it's not necessarily the achievement anymore. It's really the process and the journey and enjoying that. And another thing I found was, that the cause of all suffering is desire. And so really understanding that when you yearn for desire, that actually is a lacking frequency. And then you hold that in mind, and your computer creates then your reality. So yeah, my whole life's better. And I'm a better person for others. I'm a better resource. I have just my purpose as 100x, my finances have just greatly improved. And if you would have told me I can work 3 to 4 hours a day and I can, 10 to 50x my financial situation, I would have thought it was like too good to be true, but it really is true. So now I'm just very appreciative, and I have a lot of gratitude for the program. And this isn't, this is, if anybody wants to call me, you can email me or call me. This is true. I can give you thousands of, specific instances where I've used the tools and they've worked for me, and I use them as much as possible. So no, I'm just thrilled to be a part of the program.